I'm Dave Lavora. Welcome to the show. We find ourselves this week in central Iowa, Des Moines to be exact. We'll be visiting some of the cool places that you've been telling us for years you wanted us to visit. And here's something I can tell you at the outset of the show. Here in Des Moines, there are as many different atmospheres, different vibes, different places to drink beer as there are styles of craft beer itself. And we'll learn all about it on this episode of Brewed. We talk a lot on the show about how craft beer is an art form. And what if I told you there was a place where you could pair that art form with another art form? There is. Here in Des Moines, it's Flick's Brew House. We're joined by Emily. You're the general manager, right?
Yep.
Jack, you are the head brewer.
Yes, I am.
So the idea is it's a great place here in Des Moines to come and watch movies, both old and new, and enjoy craft beer that is made right here.
Made right here, yep.
Behind us, I see a bunch of the tanks. Those look like props. Is that?
They're not props.
That's real stuff right there.
That's all real, yep. So there's 11 tanks up there. 2 of them hold about 500 gallons, and the rest of them hold about 217 gallons. That's how big our batch size is, so it's 7 barrels.
They're just so shiny and immaculate and lit like if they're movie stars themselves, but that's the real deal back there.
So they're actually our serving vessels, so like a keg you would pour out of or tap. Those are actually hooked up to our tap line, so we run the beer straight from those tanks.
Oh, wow. So you make the beer downstairs, and then that's going to be kind of challenging getting it from there to there.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It's a sprint, honestly, because you can't even see. You got to run through the back hallways as the beer is moving, so that way you don't dump a bunch of beer on the floor.
I imagine with it being sort of is chain the right word? There are multiple locations.
Yeah, I would say so.
Do you have any say on what the beer is, or do the people at Flick's headquarters say, here's what you're making?
That's actually one of the fun parts about it, is that as head brewer here, there's 4 beers that we make all the time, everywhere. And those 4 beers are called our core 4. It's a hazy IPA, a raspberry wheat, a Mexican lager, and a Scottish ale, which is what you're having. And outside of those 4, maybe once every 2 months, we have something called a national seasonal, another beer that we all make at every location that we have, at all 10 locations. But outside of that, we have 12 beers on tap generally all the time, so only 4 or 5 of those is something I have to make that everyone makes. But outside of that, I can do almost whatever I want.
Oh, wow. So when you're coming up with the recipes, or when you're deciding like what beers with the handles that you have that are yours to do with whatever you want, help me understand that process. How do you, I imagine like balancing it out with the things you already have as part of the deal?
Yeah, so I always try to have at least one other type of IPA. IPAs are still the number 1 selling brand for us. Our House Hazy is our number 1 beer. But you kind of want to balance everything. You want something slightly more dark, you want something lighter, you want something fruity. So right now we have a blood orange West Coast IPA, an oatmeal stout, a pumpkin version of said oatmeal stout as well.
To elevate the experience, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You could have a craft beer in your living room and watch a movie. To do it here at Flick's, you really have to make sure that it's an elevated experience. Walk us through what you want the user experience to be like.
Yeah, we want it to be carefree. So by the time you walk in, the hosts greet you. They show you which seat you're in. You go to your seat. Server comes up to you, greets you. It gets any food or beverage order that you'd like. A runner brings it to you. We have recliners, so you can recline in those seats, and easy gliders. So the tables, like you said, literally turn and pull all the way to you. So you can recline, have a beer, watch a movie.
You have a lot of different options. Your menu is pretty extensive, yeah?
It is very extensive. We have handcrafted pizzas that we make from like your traditional concessions, popcorns, candy, all the way to like handcrafted pizzas and burgers, wraps, cheese curds.
And this is a silly thing to be impressed by, but the popcorn is served in the kind of bowls that you had at your house when you were a kid. Is that on purpose?
It is. They're refillable as well. So it's easy to share.
I notice looking around the lobby where we're at, there's not a lot of breweries that we've been to that have pictures of John Wayne, Lara Flynn Boyle, and Tom Arnold on the wall, and it took me a second to figure out the commonality there. They're all Iowans, or at least born in Iowa and went on to bigger and better things. How important is it? I mean, you're here in the capital of Iowa, and it's the only Flick's in Iowa. How important is making this unique and, the nature of Iowa in film, or I mean, you really want to tie that into the experience as well?
Yeah, Flix is a big part of the community, and we love to be a part of the community. Jack as well, from little kids that come to the movies to adults to doing classic movies and throwbacks. It's just something that we can bring to our community, like you said, that's elevated, and it's something different than anything else they've experienced.
I find sometimes when I go to the movie and I go to my local Cineplex, and say my wife and I go see a movie, we'll see the movie, we'll talk about it on the 5-minute ride home to the house, and then we're talking about the movie. I love what you have here with this space is, I mean, you can stick around after the movie and talk about the movie here in this space rather than just rush right home, right?
Absolutely.
It's more about, I mean, like, people can be here before and after the movie.
We also have a late night happy hour now too. It's from 9 to 11, I believe.
Yep.
What's that about?
So we have special pricing for our core 4 beers and reduced pricing for select appetizers as well.
How interested were you in making beer before you got your job as a food runner?
Very. At that point, I was already homebrewing every single weekend, just about, with my father. He had homebrewed a lot of wine in the past, so he had all the equipment basically. And one day I was like, "Do you want to try beer?" And then every single weekend we'd watch the Hawkeyes make a 5-gallon batch of beer, and a couple weeks later drink that beer while making more beer, and then rinse and repeat that for a while, and then bring in samples to the brewers here when I worked here and go, what's wrong with this? How can I make this better? Right. And that's kind of what tumbled me down the road.
The beers that you always have, your core beers, like you mentioned this Scottish beer.
But it's 10-day Scottish ale.
Okay, help me understand what's going on in this glass right now.
So it's a nice malty, but not quite stout in color. You're getting a lot of caramel. You're getting a lot of soft fruit, so maybe a touch of raisin, but not a ton of that. Yes. It's a nice malty, grainy, biscuity sort of thing going on there. And it's also only 5% alcohol, so it's easy drinking. I know that it looks slightly darker, but it's honestly, it doesn't drink that dark. This is a great go-to beer for like just people that are just like, I just want a beer.
Getting people to try something different has got to be part of the job around here, right? Like, how do you talk someone into seeing a horror movie if they don't like horror movie, but you know it's an excellent horror movie? Or how do you convince somebody, like, you say you don't like IPAs, and I hear what you're saying, but if you tried this one, right?
The easy thing with beer that you can't do with movies is we give samples out for the beers. So we do have reduced price movie days. So on Wednesdays, it's only $5.25 for tickets that entire day. So if you're not
for all the movies,
for every movie,
even like first run new releases, $5.25.
Yes.
Wow. And then you mentioned you also show like older movies.
Yeah, we show classics. Same thing. A lot of it is a discounted rate as well.
Flix Brewhouse here in Des Moines. Great movies, great food, and most importantly for our purposes, delicious beer. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. My first thought was, that's incredible, because not a lot of people are doing that. But it's not, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an element of risk when you're dealing with wild yeast like that.
It's wild. It's a wild animal.